ADHD Rise. When I rise, you rise. We rise together. I'm so excited to have you guys. Thank you for those of you who have been in this event all day long. I love you. Thank you. And for those of you who are just joining in for the very first time, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. I see you. I honor you. Oh my goodness, what an amazing, incredible day we've had. If you have not heard any of the events, then definitely listen to the replays. It has been absolute. The last 2 hours have been in freaking credible. And then also, if you are wanting to get in the know and also hear the replays, where my team is putting together some really beautiful videos of the replays where they have just, it's a video, so more YouTube style. You can listen to like podcast style. If you want to get those replays, then click on the link above my head, ADHD Rise. Just know that we are going to be doing a ton of fun things in the community. I'm giving away coffee for those of you who are sharing this out, whether if it's on Instagram, here on Clubhouse. So feel free to go down to the bottom there and share. My name is Val Nichols. I am a business coach for ADHD entrepreneurs who are multi-passionate and don't just want to create a business, they want to create a legacy. So know that you're in the right spots. I love you guys. And today we are going to be talking with someone who is so much fun. Guys, I came across this guy in this space a couple of weeks ago, and he just had, well, it's been a while, but we connected a couple weeks ago about this room. And, he's in mental health recovery and self-love deficiency. He talks about emotional balance and is a meditation advocate. He has a book that is called Gritti's Unapologetically You Journal, which includes his artwork, as you can tell from his picture. He does a lot of art, very creative, like most of us ADHD people are. And with all of that knowledge, experience, and hope, and as well as just who he is, you guys will see this. He radiates and permeates a beautiful, beautiful experience. So, with no further ado, I want to pass the mic over to my friend, Mr. Chris Nitty Gritty, and share with us who you are and a little bit about you. And I will pass the mic over to you, Chris.
Well, thank you very much, Val, and thank you for that astonishingly wonderful introduction. Yeah, my name is Chris Gritty. I go by Nitty Gritty on the social medias because it's fun, and quite often with ADHD, adding fun to the mundane is sort of my way of getting through much of the mundane. I'm a mental health coach, definitely a mental health advocate, a rational mental health advocate. But yeah, I've learned that I have a slightly different lane when it comes down to blending that with my neurodiversity. So for decades, neurodiversity has been sort of shamed and demonized into sort of some sort of mental illness or mental deficiency. And we've learned over the course of studies for years so far, and we're continuing to learn more and more every day that it's much more of a different sort of brain design. It's not a new thing per se. It's been around a lot longer than people would like to say. And it's just that we don't sort of fit into the calm, average, polite society. We are not easily interested in mundane things. So we get bored in classes like math and geometry, stuff that we do need to learn, but it's where we have some struggles. Whereas with creative endeavors and things that are distracting us in a number of different ways, like TV and internet, and now that we've got instant gratification culture at our hands, it's even harder to learn to manage our ADHD and the rest of that kind of neurodiversity. So I'm just here as an advocate, and I'm very, very passionate about helping people feel more comfortable with who they are. Most of us just want to be seen and heard and understood and be accepted for who we are despite all of our differences. That's one of the things that we genuinely have in common across the board. And I want to be able to talk more and more about that. And in today's culture, especially with the cancel culture and all the moods and all the feelings going around, streamlined and given nitrous by social media and the internet, it's very hard to stay grounded and comfortable with who you are because now you're in a giant pool that you have to be compared to. Jump back 20 years and the pool that you were compared to was limited to your town or your school or your workplace. And we didn't have this access to everyone in the country or the world or whatever. Now we do. So now we're comparing and being compared to millions of others, whether they're being successful or you name it. So it's a lot harder to stay grounded these days because we're even more connected. But I do believe that connection is the pathway to us finding peaceful coexistence. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm about. That's what I'm excited to talk about on a general basis. I can wax philosophical for hours. Val knows too, because it's the ADHD I really love. And when I get excited and that mania sort of comes up and I start to buzz and whatever you want to call it, vibrate at a higher frequency, it's one of these things. And I'm sure anybody else who shares the neurodiversity, for much of my life, I was told by others that I was too much. Chris, you're a really nice guy. You're charming. You're this and that, but you can be a little too much sometimes. And it took me almost 40 plus years to realize is I am not too much for me, which means I'm not too much. I'm too much for someone else. Too much is a subjective perception, it's not objective. And when people who are not neurodiverse say that you are too much, they speak as if they're almost speaking for the non or the neurotypical, and they're not doing that either. One of the other things that I talk about as often as I can is recognizing and being mindful of when you're speaking from your subjective perception, when you're speaking from your opinion. A good way to notice this is when you use the word should. And we're all guilty, me included. When the word should exits your lips, most likely, not exclusively, but most likely, you're speaking opinion, not facts. And since I could have a should that can counter with yours, that means we have to find some sort of common ground. Your should cannot override my should. So that's all of these things have been going on for decades. And so I'm here to try to help, get us a little bit more on track, stay grounded, and enjoy our lives, because it's not neurodiversity is not something that's you don't cure it. You embrace it and you learn to leverage it and maximize its positivity and learn to manage the negative moments. There's no erasing it. It's who you are. You're not too much. You're not wrong or broken. You're simply lost and haven't found how to manage all of that stuff. And there's tons of tools and strategies, and we're still coming up with even more. I've got a bunch that I use that help us get better at that. And it takes practice. It's hard, especially when we have trouble focusing. But when we get excited, that's the key. When we get excited, we do focus. We hyper focus on the things we're excited about. So I'll plug my face hole here and hand the mic back to Val. Thanks so much.
Whoop, whoop. Thank you, Chris, for coming out the gate on fire. Oh my gosh, so much of what you said, the should, like we should on ourselves, or we allow other people to should. Or, the mic drop that you said was like, um, we are not too much. We might be too much for the wrong people, but we are fine for, and I know that, as being a brand, and I'm sure that you too experience this, is like, yeah, I might be too much for people. I might be too much for someone who can't handle talking fast and a million miles an hour and the enthusiasm and the excitement, but you know what? I'm the right person for the right people, and being that. And there was a point where a couple years ago, I actually gave myself permission to be too much. I was like, well, what if I had
Love it.
actually, right? I'd actually paid, well, my staff had gone through and we did this whole rebrand of these muted colors that were like really pretty and beautiful, and the color codes, and we got new business cards and all these things and did a new website. And then I was like, this is not even me, right? I was like, whose standard am I basing this on? And if you guys go look at my Instagram, you'll see the bright pink, it's very eccentric, and that's who I am as a brand. That's who I am as a person. But I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm gonna scrap all of this. I'm gonna burn this brand to the ground, and I'm just gonna be me. I'm going to be too much. I'm going to stand out. So I don't know who needs to hear that right now, but give yourself permission to be too much. Go ahead,
Well, and
Chris.
another good example is in this moment right now, when you're excited and I can hear it in your voice and it's wonderful. How often have you had someone say, "Hey Val, hey, calm down," as
Oh,
you're getting excited? It's like you're being negged for your positive feeling. And I know I've gotten that plenty of times when I get excited. They go, "Calm down, Chris." And I have to and I've gotten better at explaining it as best I can and say, "I'm not angry, I'm excited." And I can see how that might read, but I'm going to clarify for you and let you know that I'm not coming from a place of aggression and anger. I'm coming from a place of excitement and passion. And it sometimes can read the same way. I understand that. But you know what I mean? And some people will take my word for it and some people won't. But I found that the people who will take my word for it and give me that little bit of extra space, those are the ones that are worth connecting with. And they eventually find a way to coexist. They go, "Oh, see, I used to think he was too much, but no, he's just a happy, really happy kind of guy." So, sometimes people have to understand, and I get it. If you're going to hang out with me, maybe you don't have the energy today. If that's the case, I don't take it personally. I'd rather you tell me I'm tired today so I can continue to go buzz and have fun with someone else than have to sort of dial myself down for you. Because as soon as we have to adjust too much for others, we don't get to be ourselves anymore. And so it's just, I wanted to touch on that because I could hear how excited you were. And so I knew this was a great learning moment of like, how many times have you been in that moment when someone's like, hey, Val, calm down? And you're like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm fine. I'm happy.
Ooh, so
Wow.
seen. Yes.
Wow.
I actually had flashbacks to this time last year. For those of you guys know, I was in a relationship and yeah, he was telling me that like, "Oh my gosh, you are like I get that you're ADHD, but like this is too much." And I was so excited about, we did the 24-hour takeover and it was like all these entrepreneurs who are ADHD, 24-hour like marathon. It was amazing. I was buzzing. I was so high and just so excited about the ADHD Rise event. And then it was like, can you just like not be that much like what you are? And I was like, oh my gosh, it was almost wounding. But I didn't take that on. And I want to share that with people who have maybe you haven't found your voice yet. And believe me, I didn't just wake up having boundaries and having a voice to do that. I remember so I used to oh my gosh, I'm laughing because it's so different sharing in this room with my mom here. It's not a bad thing. It's just different because I was so shy in high school. I hated it. I was bored. I would get like I just hated high school. And there was a couple of times like I hid in my closet instead of going to school because I was so just like, ugh, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be around people. I can't be myself. I don't know who I am. I can't be fully me. And so, like, bizarre behaviors like that. So, just know that if you don't have your voice yet, allow Chris to be your voice. Allow him to, really show you and help you that way. And yeah, I love, 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 love what you're sharing. And I'm wondering, Chris, can you describe to us your moment? I don't know if you've always been this way, if you've always had your voice, if you've always been able to say, you know what, I don't care if I'm too much. Like, I want to be me, I
Oh,
want to do me. When did that happen for you?
well, I mean, it would be disingenuous to give a specific date, but it wasn't that long ago. It was in 2020, as a matter of fact. Not only am I ADHD, but I'm also a recovering codependent, and I've suffered from over 35 years of narcissistic abuse, beginning with my mother and then following with both of my wives. It's nothing to be proud of, but I'm not ashamed either. I've been married and divorced twice, and it turned out that I kind of married my mother twice, which is not a like it's a very common thing that happens, when we are abused by an aggressive or dominant parent, that they are still our role model for that parent. So it was when my second wife pushed me to the edge of my sanity to the point of me considering to end my own life, which isn't something I like to talk about, but I'm not afraid to share it because it's important we understand how dark we can be, what kind of a dark space we can get pushed into by these people who are trying to fix us under the guise of helping us. And they're not fixing us for us, they're fixing us for them. They're trying to adjust us to fit their comfort levels. And I'm a really agreeable guy. I've always wanted to be friendly with everyone. I knew I couldn't be liked by everyone, but I never really understood when someone chose not to like me because I wasn't aggressive. When bullies would show up and start to pick on me at a young age, I was like, "What's your problem? Why are you even focusing on me? Just leave me alone." And because I didn't learn to stand my ground, because I was taken away from my father at a very early age, and my dad's actually a decent guy. I'm staying with him now. Uh, you know, I didn't have the grit, not to overuse my name, to sort of hold my ground when I needed to and be comfortable with who I was. I was told from a very early age by my mother that I wasn't good enough. So it wasn't until I was pushed to this very, very dark space that I finally decided, because I have a son myself, and I knew for sure that the answer of taking my own life, or whatever you want to call that, they have a lot of ways of saying that these days. I didn't want to be that in his memory. And because I refused to do that, I realized I was locked. I was locked by my empathy and my love for the people who do care about me. And I knew there was some that just became not an option. So the only other option is to just lean into being who you are and stop allowing others to tell you how to be. It does mean that you're going to bump into people who don't like you. That's one of my favorite affirmations. It's one of my codependent resiliency affirmations. It's okay if you don't like me. It's okay. I'm not trying to make you not like me, but if from whatever reason my excessive energy, you name it, if I'm not someone you're comfortable around, that's okay. And I never used to understand that, but it was one of those sort of profound truths that was like either die or just be yourself. And you know what I mean? And that was really what it was for me. 2020, I decided I'm not going to stay in this gilded cage that I've been stuck in by people telling me that if you stay in this little compartmentalized way of being, that you'll be accepted, because I wasn't. I wasn't even accepted while I was in the cage. I was continually told to change and upgrade and stop being too much. So once I realized that I'd rather be too much on my own than whatever else I was supposed to be or I was trying to be for others, that was sort of my empowerment moment of going, oh, it is okay to just be me. It just means that not everyone's going to accept me. Okay, well, nobody in the history of the world has ever had universal acceptance. Nobody. There's not a human in history that's ever been liked by everyone. No matter how kind, no matter how empathetic, no matter how peaceful they be, everyone has people who don't like them and don't accept them. So it was like, okay, if that's true, then I'm just going to be me. And I'll be fine if I have a smaller circle of friends. And the irony here is, I actually started to find more people instead of the fear that I was going to somehow be ostracized and forgotten about and become invisible. When you let go of the fear of external judgment, when you fill your own cup and stoke your own fire, and you're not as filled up by compliments from the outside, it's a lot harder for people to insult you. Another one of my wonderful mantras is like, you can't defend me if I don't respect you. The only people on this planet that can hurt my feelings now are people I have come to respect, because I've let them close enough that they know enough that what they say holds weight to me because I respect their opinion. But I don't respect the opinion of strangers, especially like the trolls that we come across or negative people online. That means that their very first impression, from my perspective, is they're coming out of the gate rude. So why am I respecting their words at all? If we want to be treated respectfully, it's incumbent upon us to act respectfully. And so anyone who shows up from the gate disrespectfully, their words become next to like zero when it comes to how I weigh them. It's like, all right, well, I don't respect your opinion now because you're a rude person. From my perspective, I don't have to justify that. I'm not going to tell other people they're a rude person and don't hang out with them. I'm only making these assertions and distinctions for myself about holding boundaries and being comfortable with who you are. So it was 2020 that I finally broke out of it. I was just past my 40th year.
Yes, thank you for that raw, open, vulnerable moment of sharing and your process as well, because it can be so easy for people to look at someone's outsides or hear you today fully confident and, in your worth, in your value, and unapologetic. I love that your book is called or Nitty's Unapologetically You Journal, because that's what I hear in your voice. You're embodying that. And it can be easy for someone to say, "Man, this guy's got his stuff figured out. He's confident. He knows himself, and this sounds great." And know that, sometimes you are in your chapter 1, you're in your chapter 2, and Chris may be in his chapter 30. I don't know. But just know that, it can be there's hope. And I'm sure that, grab some resources like Chris has with his journal, and, really do this work yourself, and know that it doesn't matter where you're starting, and you can, really rise to that emotional balance and to that unapologetic experience as well.
Love it, love it, love it.
Yes.
Absolutely. And if I may,
Go for it, Catherine. I actually have one question first before I forget. Sorry, ADHD. What is your sign, Chris? Are you an air sign?
No, as a matter of fact, I am a fire sign. I'm an Aries.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I'm an Aquarius, so I
April
should have.
17th, since I know people like to, like where I am in there's people who are saying early born. I know I don't get too much or take a lot of stock in astrology. I'm not demonizing it or negating it at all. It's just I don't put a lot of emphasis on it, only because from my perspective, it helps me understand myself a little bit, but I don't fit into that box either. It helps me a little bit, but it's oversimplifying the individual, right? Like not all Aries are the same. We have similarities, but not the same. And it can be very dangerous to assume that once you know one Aries or one Aquarius or one Capricorn, that you understand them all. We are all very, very unique collection cocktails of experiences and genetics and everything. So I am an Aries, but if I was to stand in a group of Aries, I wouldn't be friends with them all or agree with them all or even be on the same page with any of them about anything per se. There would be a small select group that might vibe with me, but I don't see how that's really all that different than me vibing with a bunch of Sagittariuses if that happens to happen. You know what I mean? So I appreciate it. I love it. It's fun to talk about. It's definitely relevant. It's not something to be completely tossed out, but I give it sort of that. I put it on the same thing with like the 16 kinds of personality tests or all the other things that we learn to sort of understand who we are. They're helpful, but you are still unique within all of those structures. So you don't really fit completely into any box because you're you.
Yes, because we refuse to be defined by any limitation, title, any of those things. And I love that Evely put her Sagittarius in the moment. And then, yeah, I'll hop over to Catherine.
Well, this
Catherine.
Gemini. No,
Sorry to cut you off, my love.
I couldn't help it. No, I was just going to say, like, being you, I just love the way you were talking about that, Chris, because when you are in, like, I'll give you a tiny example. I had found out I was ADHD late in life, like at 61. And so, I don't know, it's about a year and a half ago, my sister called, and I was in the zone as far as creativity, because I'm an artist too. And I was just doing some artwork. I'm in the flow. I'm creating for another creator a project that was due. My sister calls and I had the music going. I went, "Hey, how's it going?" She's like, "Whoa, you need to calm down." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" She's like, "Yeah, you're a little much right now." And I'm like, "What? What are you
It's
talking
like
about? I'm
you
in the
called
zone."
me.
Yeah, you called me exactly.
What are you
It's
talking
like,
about?
exactly. So I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, I tell you what, why don't you hang up and you call me at another time? I said, because I'm in the zone and I got to get going. I got stuff to do, so, and that was my own sister.
Love it.
But I mean, being you, like when I was in the airline industry for 20 years, they accepted me for who I was. I didn't have a title. I didn't have any way to say, oh gee, I'm different. But I knew my evaluation every year was the same, except one tiny little area. Could you not speak so much during the meetings? And I got it. I understood what they were saying. I didn't know I was ADHD. I just knew I was different. I knew I had a lot of creativity, but so I just chose to write during the meetings, and I'd write down my questions and I'd write down what I was feeling, and sometimes I would have a little feedback in the end, but I learned how to, kind of like mold it, and not so much change, but just, be more acceptive of myself, because we do have limitations every once in a while, but try to still keep all the positivity. They saw the good in me, so I was very, very grateful to have the job that I had. So that's it. Yes, just being you. Thank you so much, Chris.
Absolutely. I remember when I was young in school, and fortunately, I had some teachers who were comfortable enough in their own skin that when they challenged me and I responded, they did give me a little bit of credit. There would be often times, and I would love to, show of hands and everything, how often in school when I was listening to a lecture or I was listening to something that would have been boring if I was trying to directly focus on it, I found that if I doodled in my notebooks, I was still listening so much more. So that even though I wasn't watching them, even though they didn't have my eyes on them, which is quite often what a lot of teachers expect, it's the only way they're sure that you're paying attention, they would ask me a question. Hey, Chris, what's the answer to this question? And without looking up while still doodling, I would answer. And they would go, well, crap. Okay. I guess he is listening. And I had to prove myself over and over and over like that because I knew that the doodling, it was like having two things going on in my mind. As long as one of them wasn't important and the doodling really wasn't, it was just something to occupy that where my brain wanted to sort of run away from. Here's something fun and whimsical that has no real purpose other than in this moment. I'm not going to show anyone the doodle. It's not art. It's not, you know what I mean? None of that. It was just a tool that I had found very early on that helped me focus when I was listening to others. And time after time, people are always saying that, hey, I need you to look at me right now. And it's like, okay, well, do you need me to listen to you or look at you? Because sometimes if you really want me to pay attention, I'm going to listen more if you allow me this. So could we try it this way? And then if you don't feel heard afterwards, I'll try it your way. But I promise you that I have a harder time focusing, when I'm not allowed to sort of have a little distraction. even if it is, I know I've never done the fidget spinners or those types of things. I think that's the next, if it works for you, it's
But
great.
did you know
But it's
that
just a,
did you know that as a kid, Chris, though? Did you know
I
that?
didn't know that I was ADHD. No, I
No,
wasn't
no, no. I
diagnosed.
meant, but these skills that you're using, are you want me to listen to you, or do you want me to, I love the way you
No, that
said
was
that.
it.
Did you?
Yeah, that was an adult thing. It wasn't until I
Okay.
got older that I
All
was
right.
able to understand that. When I was young, all I was saying to the teacher was, I am listening. And I will prove to you I'm listening by answering your questions if you ask me direct questions. But please, and once they learned that I was, they left me be.
I
You know what I
do know
mean?
what you
That's
mean.
all ultimately I think they
I
want,
think that's
is to
just
be.
so, it's so wonderful that you had. I'm in speechless because the nuns, when I was growing up, the only thing they did was a spoon, and I was up on that little desk every week because I could
Right.
never sit still. I
And that
never
didn't
sat
help
still.
you at all, right?
Not
You
at
were
all.
sitting there
Not at
even
all.
worse when they
And that's
forced you to go
okay.
in the corner. Well, I
Right.
remember
No,
that.
no.
Go sit in the corner and stare at the corner. That's torture for an ADHD person. And I
Absolutely.
promise you, we're not learning anything but to not disobey.
Oh my goodness, right? So I got put, and I know Summer and I talked about this last year, but I would get put in these desk corners by myself, these little desks that had walls. And so I felt like I was being punished.
Wow.
And it was like, well, Val talks everywhere that we go. And I actually remember, I think it was fourth grade when my teacher was doing parent teacher conferences and she handed a doodle to my mom. And it's like, and then she looked at me like I should be embarrassed or ashamed. And I'm like, yeah, I was doodling in class. What's wrong? What, I don't get it. And it was like those same things on report cards, right? Like I know we all have those types of stories. It's like no matter where I put her, she talks all the time. Or I was laughing when Catherine was talking about her sister because you guys, oh my gosh, and I mean so much love and respect. My sister is me times 20. Like she is a lot. And we worked together a couple times and we were not allowed to sit next to each other in meetings because we'd be like running the show and just be like blah 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 blah. My mom's flashing her mic. I mean, my sister's a lot. She's amazing, but she's just we're all very like strong women in my family.
Yeah, I would guess, even though I would never propose it to him, that my dad is somewhere on that ADHD spectrum as well, because the two of us can literally talk and we talk over each other. That's another thing, and I'll get to that afterwards. But like the two of us can talk and we both start to buzz up, and he doesn't back off. He doesn't shut me down. He gets all manic with me to a degree, even though he doesn't see it that way because he's 67 and it's never been a problem for him. He's managed to figure that stuff out. He was raised with parents who let him be who he was because he had, I think, 6 to 7 brothers and sisters. So because they didn't have enough individual time to focus and correct, they, he was allowed to be that. Plus, he learned a lot of interpersonal stuff from having siblings. And, of course, there was all sorts of stuff between them. But I would argue he is too, because if you're sitting with me and my dad, it's the same way. That's how I knew that my current girlfriend, really appreciates me. Not that I meant to test her, but when she came out last year and visited my dad with me for his birthday, her first introduction to him was sitting between me and him at a bar in a pub, and the two of us hadn't seen each other in like 10 years, so we were just going balls. We were blazing. Both of us were vibing, and she was just bouncing back and forth. And she held her own, and she never, none of it was negative. She was like, it was just really exciting to see. For her, it was really exciting to see her boyfriend had a really healthy and wonderful relationship with his father. You know what I mean? And that's how she read it. Of course, she's a licensed therapist, so I'm very fortunate in that aspect. She has a lot of empathy and a lot of training and education to understand that stuff. But the other part that I was getting to, what was the other part I was going to say? Dang it, ADHD. You get too long into one of these rants and you forget what the hell the other point was. Maybe it'll come back.
I I remember I was talking over each other, which I'm laughing about because in
Oh,
my family we have like we'll be having three conversations and talking over each other and still tracking. And
yep.
it's very scary for a lot of guys that come into our family.
They can't
And
keep
my
up.
my ex-husband, my mom's flashing again, but my ex-husband was an engineer and he would just sit back and be like, "Oh my gosh, I don't even know what."
And that's where I was going to. And thank you very much for remembering. I appreciate that. This concept, when we're ADHD, even us doing it right now, right? We're to a degree talking over each other, even though because we're adults and we're here talking about ADHD and we're having a really good time, no one takes it personally. And I have found that when we're in those groups where it's everybody who shares that kind of stuff, there isn't a lot of negativity. I'm not offended when you come in and you want to say something, because I understand that sometimes I'll just need to like hard stop because I could just keep going. And I know that when somebody else wants to speak, especially somebody else who's neurodivergent, that they are busting and burning to say stuff just like I am. So, and I don't want to hog. None of us who are ADHD are meaning to be selfish or rude. But when you're in a room with other people who are neurodivergent, it's like you get to go faster because people don't get upset when they're cut off. They're just like, yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. And when you
Woo
grow up with
woo.
six, yeah, I'm closer to the same age as your old boss, I guess. And so when you're raised by six kids, two adults, and you got eight people in the room, yeah, ADHD comes up. You're trying to talk, and then you're the youngest, so you're getting discounted with your feelings. So it's like, oh my gosh, it's like so hard, even today, as complete adults, when I get into that atmosphere with all of my brothers and sisters, it's like, oh gosh, I'm not even going to try. They know how, bubbly I am, and they understand me. So I'm just gonna sit back and listen to them, because it's half the time it's way too hard just to interject your feelings.
Absolutely, absolutely. Another thing that I've found quite often, and this might be a little bit more polarizing or controversial, is that as someone with neurodiversity, I'm much harder to control, simply because I will very quickly lock on to stuff in a speech that's being given to me, or you know what I mean? In the first part of a sentence, I'll hear what for a logical fallacy or something, and I'll go, wait, and then the person will go, but let me finish, and my brain will say, you've already lost me. I'm gonna if you're gonna say some very long speech after this part that I'm already stuck on, I'm gonna have to focus really hard to remember what I got to ask you at the end. If you're gonna let me wait till get to the end, and if that's the case, I'm actually not listening to your substance in the middle. So it's important that we stop and we have these conversations. But manipulative people and sneaky folks and advertisers and all those, they don't want to be stopped because they've got their whole listed or scripted whatever that's worked for them to manipulate others. But when an ADHD person goes, hey, well, what about this? We can't resolve that without it being acknowledged. And they don't want that. So it's sort of in that way, it can be a superpower because we question things. And I'm a big advocate that nothing that is truth should be afraid of doubt and question. You know what I mean? If I have questions about something and you're believing and completely in it, then none of my questions should be offensive. They might be hard to answer, they might be impossible to answer, but not offensive. Curiosity is not offensive. And that's a lot with I don't know if that resonates with everyone else, but holy moly, have I realized that when people are trying to push me and I start to notice the push and I try to point at it, they're like, wait, let me finish. And it's like, no, you're already pushing me. You're already off. You need to resolve that before I'm going to continue with you. And most of the people who are dead set on it are like, oh, you're impossible. I can't deal with you. You're too much. And I'm like, okay, bye. Thanks for trying.
Whoop whoop. All
Whoa.
right. Everyone, I want to reset the room real quick. We are in the ADHD Rise events room. We are talking with Mr. Chris Nitti Gritty. Check out the link above my head. He has an incredible resource called Gritti's Unapologetically You Journal. So definitely check that out. He's very creative, as you can see. And yeah, we are here in the ADHD Rise room. So excited for the conversations. Thank you guys so much for being out here, being around, being with us today. And so, yeah, we'll go ahead and open up the mics as well if anyone has questions and all that. First, I just want to give a huge shout out to Chris for being willing to hop in here today and share his incredible experience as well. And he is a mental health coach. So definitely reach out to him if you have any questions and want to be. And I want to acknowledge my friend, my dear, dear friend here, who is so incredible as well, who hopped up on stage. I want to say hello to Dan Roth. If you guys don't know him, get to know him. He is incredible and a true friend. I'll say that. Like, he's become a true friend for me and such a powerful, incredible person in my life. So, what's up, Dan? How are you?
I am good. How late am I, Val?
No.
Yeah, I was working till about 9:30 last night. I know you wanted me to pop on, but I didn't remember what time.
You were on the perfect time. Perfect timing, my friend.
Oh, you are just such a great brown noser, but that's okay. I appreciate you nonetheless. By the way, if y'all like coffee, this woman has the Costco of coffee. Um, I'm going to have to get you to narrow it down to your favorite so that I could order some from you. Uh, but seriously, that thing goes on for pages and pages and pages. I was sitting there like, if that was wine, I may have been able to pass away happy in the moment. But, alas.
Yeah, we're actually working on that today. Thank you so much for that, because I didn't realize there was like all the restaurant sized ones were in there too. So we are narrowing down a ton today. My girls are working on that behind the scenes. So thank you, Dan, for supporting ADHD Cafe. And yeah, it was a little ADHD. I was like, holy cow, this is messy. So we're cleaning that up as well. Thank you. All right. I know we have some incredible people up here on stage as well. So we can go PTR order, or if you want to flash your mics. Let's start off with Adam. How are you, Adam? Hello from Peru.
I'm really great. I have to say, I love how Chris uses words and explanations to explain some of these things. I'm definitely going to have to go back over the replay because my ADD definitely is like kicked up, but I know there's some really great language stuff I can use with some of my other clients. So I really want to thank you for having him in and giving me access to this clearly phenomenal mind. Because I'm all about the words and explanations and helping people find language for different things because they haven't had the opportunity before. And I think that's so important, is to give ourselves grace for not knowing how to describe something and finding access to people that can support us in that. Because I'm all about really teaching people how to engage with us as individuals. And I think that for me, my emotional balance comes from my external community. That when I have people that make me feel recognized, appreciated, and understood, that's where I get my emotional balance. So many people are like, no, you should do all this work yourself and you should be able to stand alone and without all this other stuff. And I
There's the
believe,
shoulds. There's the shoulds.
right. Yeah. And I freaking hate them. And it's like my business is the clearest you, and I love helping people be clear on how they function rather than what someone tells them they should function and how they should engage from that place. So I really appreciate and love having another, what I call, warrior healer, like somebody who just really helps people find their power. And that's such an important piece. Is, for me, emotional balance doesn't come from any sort of peaceful place. It comes from being in a powerful place. And so I can support and help people that engage with that. So I really just want to thank you for having these um, specific focuses and just driving forward. And I I don't really follow a lot of people on Clubhouse because I'm very particular about who I connect to. And so, Val, you just have such a wide array of phenomenal people, and I appreciate and engage with connecting in the room. And uh, thank you so much for putting all this energy into all these offerings. Thank you so much.
Aw, thank you, Adam. Yes, yeah. When the moment I connected with Chris and heard him and experienced him, I was like, ooh, we have got to have a conversation. I roped him into it right away. Yeah, he has a phenomenal way of, I love what you said. Words and explanations. Words and explanations. I love that.
Ironically, or maybe not ironically, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it's irrelevant here. That's where I got to the nickname Nitty Gritty. One of my good friends in life, before I ever became sort of a social media guy, he mentioned that to me, and he's like, "Yeah, your thing, as far as I can tell, Chris, is you really know how to sort of filter things down to its nuts and bolts and talk about it in a way that doesn't sound like you're talking down to me. We're trying to find some sort of common ground." So he's like, and your last name is Gritty. So Nitty Gritty is just another way of saying that. I really, really, really love breaking things down to their base so that we can find those olive branches and that understanding. And it can be very hard to do when emotions get clouded up. So it's like we've got to talk about the facts and the realities and the mechanisms and the rational stuff first. and then we blend in our emotions. But if we're too hardwired to be emotions first, it can be very hard to find rational solutions. And so it's just, it's just one of those things. And also the unapologetically you thing. I've had people push back on me with that, and it's like, well, I guess I should clarify. I encourage and advocate for everyone to be unapologetically themselves. Be unapologetically you, not unapologetically rude. And there is a difference. And I think most of us are more than well aware of the difference. But I always like to point it out because there are some folks who will use it as a pass to go and be rude and obnoxious and inconsiderate and unempathetic. And I've never really met too many ADHD folks who are. They're simply, they've been simply fighting against people not paying attention or listening to them for so long that they're desperate to sort of get their message heard or even just be seen and validated for who they are. So unapologetically you, but not rude. You know what I mean?
Yes, firm and kind. Firm and kind. I love that. All right, Miss Sally, would you like to share?
Um, Thank you, Chris. I just learned a whole bunch from you. If you saw all the doodling I did, you'd know that I was really listening to you. I
I
really,
love it.
I really like when you said that. I'm trying to find exactly where I wrote it down. Give yourself permission to be too much. It's like give yourself permission to be the person that you are. And like you said, you don't need to be rude about it. But if you don't get me, or you don't want to try to understand me, it's okay. I don't need you as a friend. I have lots of friends and I can find more. But I love that because, each of us are definitely individuals. We all have our own stories that we come with, and the things that made us great and the things that really broke our hearts. But, it all comes together. And the important thing is that, you know, if I don't respect you and I don't care what you have to say, it's all right. But you don't need to push yourself on me. I don't need to push myself on you. And I'm free to be me. You're free to be you. So I love that, Chris. And I love your enthusiasm. I do not think that you are too much. I think you're just where you need to be.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I do. I have a little bit of a hard time. I suppose everybody has their hard times, but for me, especially in the public forum, that's why I'm so excited to have met people like Val. I'm not very good at advertising, predominantly because advertising has an element of manipulation in it. And so it's been a very hard thing for me to find a way to sort of project out, because I'm not it's not a soapbox. You know what I mean? I'm not up on a soapbox. I'm sharing stuff, and it's really hard to sort of stay grounded when, especially when folks try to put you up. Even when and you're doing good, they try to put you up, and it's like, well, hold on. Why do I have to be up? Why can't we just be on the same level and have these conversations? I appreciate the compliment, and and I've learned to get better at accepting it. It's one of my biggest, like one of my struggles is to graciously accept compliments, because I'm so quick to go, yeah, but I'm this and that and that and that. So like I don't know if it's a hard wiring. I don't know if it comes from my trauma response. I'm still working on a lot of those things. Never let anyone in the mental health world tell you that they are not working on something. If they say they've got it all together, I would say question that and dig in.
Absolutely. And Chris, I want to encourage you to remember that as a coach and as a mental health advocate, um, you had to think about the fact that you're actually lending a service. You're lending part of you. And I know that advertising is kind of hard and it's a thing, but if you could pull back the limits on your belief and realize that you're actually doing people a service by giving them your skill and your love for what you do. That's just me talking. So you can take 2 cents for what it's worth.
Well, I take it completely. Thank you very much, Catherine.
I love it. And just know I will be the one. I will brag on you all day long. If you are shy to brag on yourself, just know that come up here and share on yourself. You don't have to toot your horn. I'll toot it for you. I'm going to stop there. um, no, I was like, that sounded really bad in so many different ways. I should apologize. My mother's in this room. Dear
I
goodness.
took that for the way
Oh,
you meant it, just so you know that
okay.
you're happy to be supportive, and I appreciate it. I do. Yeah, it's I yeah. I like to talk. I'm always willing to share stuff about me if people are interested, like directly, but I'm more often really passionate and interested to talk about ideas and strategies and ways that we can grow and heal that are really rational, practical, and work. That's where I get excited. I can share how they've worked for me, but like the me part, it's like, yeah, it's not really important. It's because it isn't. I'm not selling me. I'm not selling anything. I'm trying to share ideas. That's why most of my content, when you look at it, is me sharing ideas. I don't always. I'll share a bit about myself. I'm not afraid to, but that's not always what people are showing up for. Quite often, the moment when being vulnerable or sharing about yourself, that's just so that people can understand that you've had some experience and you understand, so that you can resonate and empathize. But when people show up to try to learn something, they want to learn something, not just who you are. You know what I mean? So I am not good at receiving compliments, but I will continue and endeavor to get better at it. So thank you very much.
Whoop whoop. Something I've learned, and I hope that this serves somebody, is that I used to be so bad at compliments, and I'd be like, yeah, but no, 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 no. Is I just stop, I put my hand on my heart, and I say, thank you. I receive
Yep,
it.
it's all you can do. It's also the kindness to the people who are offering that to you. I had to learn that too, because even though I would sort of contradict that when I'd say, yeah, but it was almost devaluing their opinion of me, which in a way is disempowering me and disempowering them in the exact same moment. So it's like, that's just can't be the way. You know what I mean? So when someone is kind enough to offer you a compliment, whatever it is, I had to learn and I continue to practice being mindful and accepting them as graciously as I can.
Yes, love it. All right, Miss Natalie. I think this is the first time I've met you, so I'm excited to hear and hear your share. If you are open to sharing, I'd love to pass the mic to you. It is the little microphone on the bottom right. If you are not able to share, that's okay as well. You can hop on over to Miss Danielle. All right, Danielle.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like I kind of feel like how you're talking about you were that kid who would talk all the time. Like I was that kid who especially in elementary school, like I didn't talk a whole well, I talked a lot, but my main thing was learning how to tune other people out, right? Because I was a kid who like I always wanted to know what everyone else is doing. And sometimes it would it would get me off track, right? Like especially in elementary school when, you know, um since I'm also visually impaired, and so during in elementary school from like kindergarten to fourth grade, I was in a class, but like they had other visually impaired people there, and so like it was a self-contained, and so yeah, I was that kid who just like I always wanted to know what's happening around me. And it's gotten better as I've gotten older, right? I've learned how to like tune things out. But now sometimes I tune things out and it's not good because I miss things. So like I think that's where I'm kind of struggling as far as like um emotional balance and like being able to kind of like okay, not miss the important things, but tune out those things that aren't really serving me. So yeah, that's what I've got right now.
Sure, that speaks to the hyper focus and sometimes our inability to focus on one thing at a time. When we hyper focus, everything else can get tuned out. But if we're not actually locked onto something, it can be a lot of noise. I hear you there. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, thank you, Danielle, for sharing. I love your heart. I love your vulnerability, and I love your gentleness in the way that you share. You are just such a special, gosh, I have a special place in my heart for you, and it's been great to get to know you over the last couple of months. So thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing. Love you. And we'll pass over to Shady. Shady,
Hey
if you
pal,
are
how are you
there.
doing?
So good. How are you?
Good, good. Just busy as always. Busy as always, I guess. Um, well, Chris, I was actually like doing some work right now, and I was listening to what you're saying, and the part that the most I related to was the fact when you talked about being perceived as too much. And why I related to that, it's because obviously in my life, I've been criticized a lot for my excess energy or my um, hyperactivity and over talking, oversharing, and sort of saying things without having some sort of restraint on what I was saying. And that definitely has impacted my life to some degree in both, especially in the negative. But well, obviously, also in a lot of relationships, like you were talking about your current girlfriend or fiance, I can't remember, how she handled your energies and your relationship with your dad and handled both of your energies together and how there's elements of ADHD in both of you. I did not, unfortunately, did not have the same experience as you did. Most of my relationships, I was heavily criticized for that excess energy, or I don't know if the right words, like, excuse me, I'm using excess energy just because I'm lacking a better term here. I would rather use a more loving way to say about that. But um, so yeah, but what I'm trying to get to saying is that what I loved is hearing how much self-love you have and how much respect you have for yourself and for who you are and being unapologetic. And I think that with time, although I masked a lot of these symptoms throughout my life, with time I started understanding that, you know what? Maybe it's time to just let myself be who I am, because at the end of the day, you know what? I do actually have a lot of friends that love me for just who I am, and I should not be so self-conscious about this just because of some bad experiences that I've had with other people. And I started filtering out people on the basis of whether they were accepting of me, of how I was and how I am, or not. And it's nothing against them personally. It's just sometimes it's not even ADHD. It's just sometimes the way people are and behave and their personality. They maybe cannot, um, they cannot stand people who talk a lot or stand people who have a lot of passion in their speech, and they like to speak and share and express. So yeah, just overall, I just wanted to say that I really related to that overall point, and really enjoying the conversation so far, and looking forward to hear everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shady. And absolutely, I understand what you mean. I should say this, even though I ask everyone to promise not to tell my current girlfriend that she is a first in my life experience, and I am now 43. It wasn't until I started understanding the codependency side of my trauma that I was starting to understand that I was being attracted to people that were not good for me. And so when I met her, she's an outlier from my normal type, so to speak. And it's a very new experience for me as well. And this was just last year that this happened with her. Almost all of my life experience before that was my partners and my close people telling me that I was too much. And another thing that I wanted to touch on was this term that we often use as neurodivergence of symptoms. I don't believe they're symptoms, I believe they're attributes. Symptoms as a negative connotation to it, as if we are ill in some way and there are symptoms that are alluding to our illness. I don't believe I am ill. I do not believe I am deficient. I believe I am different, but that's not wrong or right. So the parts of me that are excess energy, that's another one you touched on. I would argue that it's not excess for you, it's excess for the others. It speaks to that too much. And we've been conditioned to say that our excess energy is somehow a negative thing. It's only something we haven't learned to leverage because we've been told it was wrong by people who don't understand. And so I just wanted to touch on those few things to let you know that like it's so easy to get down on yourself for these things, and there's so much societal conditioning that is reinforcing it. Even these days, we are getting better. Scientists and the people in the mental health world, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed, in my opinion. But we are improving. We are continuing to study. It's a science. We are exploring and learning. That's why whenever I come across someone who is too definitively certain that they have found the answer, I cry bullshit. Forgive my language.
Hey, Chris, I have to step in here and ask you a question. Um, you said current girlfriend. So my question is, are you already planning for the next?
Oh no, well, I guess that's a good qualifying question. Well, I'm just saying yeah, this experience is me in present moment with the girl I am now dating. No, I'm not intending on moving past her. That would be disingenuous to her. I wouldn't even. That would be very
So,
rude to be in a relationship with someone. Yeah.
so Val is probably laughing on mute because she knows that I'm just busting your balls.
Well,
So my
fair ball.
apologies.
No, it's a
Yes,
fair ball.
I was.
That's a fair ball.
I
I
was laughing
appreciate
out loud.
it. I love it. Thanks, Dan.
I was like, let's go. He asks me zingers like that too that really, whew, just get me. So I totally get it. All right, we'll hop on over to Brian. Brian, how's it going? How are you, my friend? How was life? If you're able to share.
Give me 1 second.
You got it. In the meantime, I want to ask you, Chris, thank you. Oh, Brian, are you ready?
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
just had to sneeze. That's why I went on mute. Um, yeah, so well, I I did not hear your presentation, Chris. So my apologies on that. But I did read your bio to get an idea of who you are, and yeah, I love the concept of the nitty gritty and using your last name and that nitty gritty phrase uh, for your brand. And I think that there's definitely a lot of good things you're doing, uh, and and I do think that the world is getting there, but I'm not sure they've gotten down to the nitty gritty about mental health and self love yet. Uh, but I do think they're getting there, and I would just say to keep up the good work you're doing. And yeah, like I said, my apologies, I didn't hear your presentation, but I did want to come and support the room, uh, especially given that I did speak the other day. So it was just appropriate to spread the love to the other speakers that Val is hosting. So thank you, and I yield.
Yeah, and before anybody else says anything, I gotta say this. You don't need to apologize, Brian. You really don't. You didn't have to be here. You showed up. Quite often, the very first step in learning about who we are, one of the most profound truths that we can do to help us be more comfortable is knowing yourself. We've known that for centuries. So, one of the first things is just showing up. Perhaps you didn't show up as early as you might have liked to, but I found no fault in it. And so, for that reason, you owe me no apology. I'm the unapologetically you guy. So, I appreciate you. I appreciate it. When it comes down to the nitty gritty in the mental health world, don't worry. I'm just going to keep getting louder. So, I'm just getting started.
Yes, I love that. And I think that's a great theme for this whole day. You know, it's like the mental health world. Let's have conversations. Let's lift up. Let's get down to the nitty gritty and let's share our truths. And I love that. Chris, again, I want to honor you and thank you so, so, so much for sharing yourself, your talents, and your wisdom with this room. And I know that you do have, I put your website up above our heads here. So everyone go hop over, check out what he's got. He does have his journal, the Grittis Unapologetically You journal. So, Chris, what is the best way to get to know you? Like, if people want to hang out in your space, how can they connect with you? Instagram, website, like, what's the best way?
Well, I made a few ways. Since I'm ADHD, I don't always like to make one trail, but I try to make them as easy to follow as possible. When you go to my website, I do have a links page, fairly easy to find there, that is connected to my TikTok, as well as I just started a Patreon so that I can start to get some financial support so I can continue to do this more instead of having to go get another part-time job and so on and so forth, because almost everything I've done up until this point has been predominantly for free. So please check out the Patreon, give that a shot if you're interested. A lot of my content so far has been on TikTok because I'm a goofball. I like to play, so I share a lot of what I consider to be helpful, rational information and educational stuff about all sorts of manipulative and toxic stuff. I'm big into narcissism because of my personal experience, so there's a lot of content there on that, but not exclusively. And yeah, on Instagram, if somebody wants to directly contact me, then you can either go and private message me on Instagram, or you can email me from the links that'll be available on the website, which is cgrittycbt@gmail.com. You know, for Chris Gritti and cognitive behavioral therapy. So cgrittycbt, if you're interested. Thanks, Val.
Whoop, whoop. Thank you so much, Chris. Oh my goodness. I think I'm going to listen to this replay like 20 different times. So connect with him. I'm going to go follow you on TikTok. I don't think I'm following you. I don't spend a lot of time on there, but I'm going to go follow you over on TikTok. And thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone who showed up and gave your space, whether you are working and listening in the background or if you are here on stage. Thank you for really sharing your heart, sharing your space. And we are going to close down this room and hop over to the drum roll, the Christina Denise, who is going to be sharing on codependency and people pleasing. I mean, what a beautiful catalyst from this room to the next. We just learned how to be emotionally balanced. We just learned how to be too much, how to stand in our true worth, how to be unapologetically us. And now we get to go learn about codependency and people pleasing. So follow us over to the room. This is ADHD Rise. This has been Chris, the Nitty Gritty, sharing on emotional balance. We've had amazing shares here today. Thank you guys so much for your beautiful heart, your love, and we will continue this conversation over in the room with Christina Dennis. I love
so
you guys. Bye. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Chris. You are a rock star.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care, everyone.